Okay. So this is my husband Stan, and I'm Folly, and then we'll be presenting on a commercial glass install glazing and fabrication subcontractor. Um, this business is in Arizona, and its history comes from, so it was founded in 2010. There were originally four shareholders. Two of them have retired, one last in 2022, and another is looking to completely exit. The first owner owns 64% of the business, and their role is a more accounting standpoint, but that role has actually been absolved in the company. So that owner is quite passive now. Owner number two is 23.5% owner, and he is the general manager currently. He does more business development, oversees day-to-day operations, client relationships, and does some estimate work. Our service here is aluminum framing fabrication. They do not fabricate glass. They only install the glass, but they do fabricate the aluminum. They install sliding doors, handrails, shelving. They have 12 staff on their team, five in leadership and two admin. And then they have five installers and a glaziers. So they've got a pretty well-developed team and a mixed tenured staff. So they've got some people who have been with them for a good amount of time, and then they've also have um, some installers and glaziers that came in about 2 to 3 years ago, who are younger because the job is a lot more labor intensive, needing them on the field. So they serve usually commercial general contractors and specializing in hospitals, schools, office parks, car dealerships, colleges, and more. They do new constructions and remodels. And they usually focus on they have main clients that they focus on, big GCs, about 15 clients. Another thing to note here is three of the sons of the owner are currently in the business as well. So it's an additional layer that's added to the staff.
All right, so who's the team? So we're a husband and wife team. My name's Stan. This is Folly, as she mentioned. And what do we bring? We bring over 10 years of real estate and investor experience, as well as successfully managing with properties, renovations, structuring, working with GCs and contractors of that sort. We also have a total of 15 years of healthcare experience, specifically myself and managing teams, a diverse group of teams, developing workflow systems. And the main thing with that is just basically enhancing collective patient outcomes or outcomes based on the hospital in general. We also have one of the current owners who was willing to retain 10% of rollover equity, who will retain in the business. He brings over 35 years of experience in the actual business. He has previously sold two other successful businesses prior to his venture now. He has a profound understanding of the owner-investor model, having built these businesses, allowing him to operate independently. I believe he works about 25 to 30 hours in the business currently, ensuring that he'll sustain growth and development in the company. We're also seeking or in pursuit of an angel investor, someone with assistance for down payment. We'll talk more about that later, but someone also who has experience in the sector who can assist with development and growth. So compound annual growth rate in this sector. The CAGR is about 0.9% over the past 5 years. The total revenue of 20.7 billion in 2023 alone, expected to expand the 1.4% to 22.2 billion by 2028. So what are the industry challenges? One of the main industry challenges dealing with really any contract or subcontract business is finding skilled senior labor on the field. Supply chain can delay job progress as well as increase material costs during inflation or inflationary times. Um, there could be economic downturn that could slow down commercial construction. And lastly, labor intensive. It is very labor intensive. So that can cause a high turnover rate during the field staff.
Some unique selling points of this business. One thing we really like about it is just they've really dialed in on the mid-tier job size. So their average job size is around 600K to 700K. And they take of a highest in the year, they'll probably do around 2 million. And with that size, they are looking at usually about 20 jobs and 20 projects per year. So how they currently evaluate that is they'll, get bigger jobs to anchor down their year, and then they'll pick smaller jobs to fill in the gaps. And so because of this niche size, they're able to be one of the best pricing and quality in their market. And this causes GCs to consistently come back to them for work. And as we mentioned, so their customer concentration here is actually high because they have a huge national general contractor has a long tenure with them, that's been working with them since 2011, and they have 49% of their 2023 revenue, and they have a long history of having worked with this general contractor. So as far as their customers, national GCs in this region, local and regional GCs, they do a 95% of their clients, existing clients, send them invitation for bids. And then 85% of the projects that they have are from repeat customers. So new GC clients, which is really great about this business, are referred by their manufacturers usually. So there's no sales team, there's no marketing at all in this business. As far as customer relationships, especially when you're thinking about a high customer concentration, you're thinking who here really has the relationships in this business? Is it the owners? What happens when they exit? And the good thing about this business is no one person truly owns those relationships. So the process goes like this. So bid invitations are submitted to the company, and then the estimator will then submit the proposal. And from the proposal, if it is accepted, then the project manager will usually coordinate production and logistics with the GCs. And it's a really multifaceted relationship where different people on the team have been able to form relationships with these repeat customer clientele. And especially with the national GC, it's not, they're not having those big relationships with corporate, but just the people on the field who are coming back to them to work with them.
Looking ahead, so what is the potential for growth? Speaking with the owner, there's a 4.3 million backlog of work for this year alone. Revenue for 2023 was 4.7 million. There's 500,000 of new revenue and 20% growth margins for 2024 alone. There is an opportunity to expand in the residential sector. Their primary focus is the commercial sector in this stage. There's also opportunity to expand geographically. The potential to hire more skilled work. As I mentioned, there's a 4.3 backlog. So more skilled and proper work will allow them to be able to take on more jobs. So this company is in Arizona, which is a growing population, specifically 2022, 7.3 million, and a plan to be 8 million by 2028. So definitely a growing population in that sector. So we believe that this is of a fragmented niche. So that allows opportunities for roll-ups in that nature. As Farley mentioned, there's no current sales team. So they rely heavily on their reputation and word of mouth. So developing a skill and proper sales team can allow the opportunity to grow the company further. And yeah, there's a abundant amount of work. So it's more of a concern of finding the skilled labor as opposed to finding work. So we think that there's plenty of opportunity there.
Yeah, as we mentioned previously, in this deal, we're really looking for, we are looking for partners as just like knowledge partners to help with the strategic growth, but also, someone of an angel investor, that type who can come and bring in some industry expertise. We've partnered with the owner already, who we've been able, just from talking with him, bounce some ideas of what growth can look like in the future. So we're really comfortable in that relationship. But the part is, if a partner was to bring 5% or 10% down, depending on what was required by the SBA, these are some of the numbers and returns that you can expect. And just to say that these are very conservative numbers, just with our projections, we wanted to make sure that, we had very realistic, conservative, and honestly beatable numbers to show as a potential for what the returns on investment will be. And from that, we will go to the financials. Hold on one second, guys. I'm trying to pull this up here. Okay. So can you guys see this? Just making sure.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so on the one sheet, so we've got their revenue here at around 4 million, 4.7 in 2023. Now they are asking for 3.45 million. They do have, what's included in that is a $4.3 million backlog. Working capital amount, they are wanting to only keep 525,000 in the business. And then the terms that they've offered and some of the terms that we've talked through with the owner is seller financing at 10%, 5% interest, 5 years, but we extended it out to 10 years just with SBA regulations. And then one owner is willing, from just our conversation and talking with him, one owner is willing to roll 10% of their equity and stay on as a 2 to 3 year general manager and kind of continue in that role. So the revenue is 4.7 million in 2023. Now, if you're looking at this, you'll see that there was a dip in 2022. And when we asked him about this further, he mentioned that, some of the issues were supply chain, like we mentioned, some of the threats and challenges in the industry, supply chain in 2022. They also had not yet factored in inflationary costs. And then there were some delays in their work that dropped them. But he says since that time that they have fixed those things to really make sure that their numbers and there's more accuracy there. But this was the dip in that time period. So we're looking at a 3.6 to 3.7 multiple of adjusted EBITDA. In their add backs, you'll see that they have some huge add backs, and that's because the owners really took a chunk out of the business for their salary, and that we've been able to confirm through the W-2 documents that we saw. Others is gross margins. Let's kind of go here. So they've got last year 36% gross margins, and adjusted EBITDA margins usually in the 19 to 22%. We did factor in that we would the salary of the owner that he would be willing to take would be 90%. I mean, $90,000. And he would not need any dividend payments until his exit, whenever that would be negotiated. Um, Now,
Hey,
cash
Folly,
on.
are you able to expand the slide? Showing at about 35%.
Sorry about that.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Can make it a little smaller too. Maybe that works a little. Okay, so cash on hand. They have, a surplus amount of cash on hand. About I think they have about a little over $800,000 in surplus. And if you're looking at the ARs as well, how they do their payments is they will typically have a retention that the GCs hold 10% of their monthly payouts. And from that 10%, they'll get that sum at the end of their job. So it skews the AR numbers. And when I talked to him, he said their ARs are usually ranging from like 45 days to 60 days in ARs. Um, let's see here. Okay. Yeah, MUD score.
Yeah, so for the MUD score, this seller was underneath LOI, but fell out. Mentioned that the majority owner is a bit withered of the process, but he himself, if they are not able to find the correct partner, that he would look to grow the business, find land, and grow uh, the business in that space. So we put the motivation at 4, the urgency at 5, and the distress at 3. As far as the lever, legacy is very important to them. They have both sellers between the two have 3 sons that work currently in the business now and are willing to stay on upon close or sale. So we put the legacy at 7, the employee at 10, value alignment at 7, and relationship at 5. And the customer concentration, as mentioned previously, is 49%, close to 50%.
We're gonna take you now to the SBA model.
So if we were to agree on terms in this deal, as mentioned earlier, the seller is willing to roll over 10% equity of the property, as well as we would seek 10% from an angel investor for the down payment, and 10% seller finance. It'll be 70% through the loan. As you can see down below, the cover ratio is 1.97. So we feel pretty comfortable with that space.
And then to the forecast model, remember, we really wanted to make sure that we were conservative here. Even the projections for 2024 actually has a higher revenue. They're at a 5.3 is what he was anticipating that they would do in 2024. But we want to just make sure, like year one, we're at 7% year over year growth, and keep the gross margins and the percentage of revenue just, pretty modest. And with that, we estimate, if we buy the company as is at the current price of 3.45, in 5 years, we could potentially, at a very modest level, be able to, if we did sell in 5 years, walk away with $4.5 million. And another thing too is the business doesn't hold a lot of inventory. And secondly, their CapEx, they don't have a ton of equipment because all they're fabricating really is the aluminum hoists. And they're getting the glass glass delivered by the manufacturer to the job site. So we put the CapExes at, a 50,000 roughly per year for, different things or equipment or cars or things like that need to be changed out. So yeah. Does anyone have any questions? That's the end of our presentation.
Yeah, great presentation. I think the only question I see right now is from Ankar. It says, is it easy to scale employees in this type of business, to ask, because it seems you do have all the demand / pipeline set already?
Yeah, so we talked to the owner, and that's one thing he said. He said, finding skilled field workers is tough, but it's doable. They have the right employees in place for staff, but that's one thing that we would want to do. And we even factored it into our forecast as well, is what does it look like to hire another lead and get another installer under him. Um, but they use agency staff, so they'll contract sometimes temporary full-time workers to fit the demand. And then they use local things like Indeed or stuff like that to find other laborers as well. But yeah, that is a challenge. And I think that's a challenge in a lot of construction. But, one that's possible to overcome with the right skill set and funnel.
Right, Mark.
Yeah.
So my question, my first question is this in your lane? And if it's not in your lane, are you looking for a strategic investor, not just a capital investor?
Yeah, so let me go back to. So this is not in our lane. One of the reasons why we feel more comfortable with this is because the owner is staying on. And as you mentioned, we are looking for a strategic investor as well as a capital investor. Prefer to be in one. Someone who has experience in the business and specifically can assist with the actual growth, running, and day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and when we talk to the owner, the really great thing about our conversations with him is we told him straight up. We said, "Hey, we do not have any glass experience. This is our experience, or commercial general contracting. We have experience in residential, working with general contractors, not being them ourselves." And so from there, he felt comfortable to say, I've built my businesses have been to operate independently outside of me. So he felt like he had the skill set to transfer whatever knowledge, whether it was from a GM who he would hire on his exit or to the owners who he wanted to take over part of his role. So with those conversations, we felt pretty comfortable. But even with that, we still want someone in this field that could really impart. And we've been able to have some really great conversations with some people on Protege about this opportunity.
Yeah, so my advice when you're pitching it is to be very specific that we're not looking for just a person with money. We're looking for somebody that has knowledge in the industry that's going to be our partner. It makes you look more sophisticated that you care who the investor is.
Okay.
And you do really want somebody that's got industry knowledge
Right.
that's really going to contribute to the business. I think I always teach that one of the factors that makes you the best new owner of the business is that you're excited about the business.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
you've convinced the seller that you're excited enough that he thinks he can train you, then that's perfect. And you need to capitalize on that too. And so I would double down on talking about the fact that the seller really likes you and you've got good rapport with the seller.
Can I ask a quick question there while you guys are mulling? Could you put up the DSCR screen one more time? I just didn't grab it in time. I think they jammed. They froze.
Did they freeze?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're frozen.
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to drop my mic then.
Yeah, they just left. It looks like they should be coming back. I see James has his hand up.
Yeah, all I was going to ask is because I had to step away for a few minutes and I didn't get a good close at the one sheet. But what
Oh, they're back.
did they have it?
Hold on one second. They're
We're
just came
back
back
on.
in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but we're back on.
No worries.
Well, welcome back to the party.
Al had a question. Let me make you co-host again so you can share your where did you go? Hold on. Let me make you co-host so you can share. Al Greco was asking a question, and then James has one, and then Leonard has one.
Hi, Folly. I was asking if you could put up the DSCR screen one more time with a lower portion of the SBA model screen, I think it was.
Hold on one second. I would have to log in through my phone. Sorry. I mean, through my laptop because it,
Oh.
yeah.
So we're back on the laptop. So just log back in and then just log off the phone.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties here.
It happens.
I guess one while you're pulling that up, and we'll look at that. One comment that I had was on the working capital. I think you said that they were willing to leave $500,000-600,000 of working capital in the business. I think that's not near enough for what you need. If you look at the burn rate in terms of expenses, just on average, it's probably about $310,000 per month that they're spending in expenses. And if you look at that AR number and how long it takes to collect, if I'm going off my memory, I think it's around 110 days. So you've got almost a 3 to 4 month window from when you perform the job to when you're actually going to collect on those receivables. So you've got to have enough cash in the business as part of your working capital initially to cover that. So, just take, 300,000 times 4 months, you're looking at minimum 1.2 million. And even that's, stretching it. So I think you really got to dig into that working capital number and understand that to make sure that you're covered with enough cash to get you through that period.
I thought they had said the account receivable cycle was like 40 to 60 days. Am I off on that?
On the one sheet, it was like 110 days, I think it was.
Yeah, so on the one sheet, it's 110 or 107 days. With the way that they do their payments, they collect like a retention for 10% per month for their jobs. So that kind of skews the numbers. But yes, the working capital is something that we intend to negotiate with the owner. I'm back on, by the way, and if I can get the share my screen access, I can pull up the page was asked.
Yeah, and to David's comment too there real quick, with there being 50% concentration, that adds a level. So, understanding who that actual customer is that's not paying, is it that 150% customer? Is it multiple customers that are extending out payments? So understanding who that is, and that's if it's that 150% customer and they're just paying whenever they feel like it, that's a huge risk. And yeah, financing could be tough.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point. We did speak to the owner, and we'd have to dig into this a little more too with them, is they're saying from their standpoint they get paid by 60 days once jobs are completed. And then also they do have a line of credit in the business of 750,000 that they could use, but they usually by year end are at zero balances, but they do have a lot of surplus capital in there. So yeah, we'll have to dig into that. Thanks. If someone can share, I could share my screen now if needed. I just need access to be able to do that. So.
All right, you
Well,
should be able to.
While you're doing that, if it's okay to jump in, I just want to dovetail a little bit on both the working capital and the customer concentration. I ran a contracting business, subcontractor business. It was in cleaning, not construction. Did a lot of construction cleaning in my earlier years. I 100% agree with Jeremy. I think no matter what anybody tells you, you have to count on 90 days when you're dealing with general contractors. That's just tends to be the way of the world, or their world. The customer concentration, you have to be very, very careful. And you might want to, even if it means waiting on this deal for a little while, you might want to wait it out until it becomes more of an annuity deal. Customer concentration could be the most dangerous thing anybody does in business. If you've got one customer that's 50%, and let's just say they don't end up like getting rid of you, okay? They can smell it, and they know whether they're your biggest customer by far, and they can put pricing pressure on you. They can do all kinds of things. I'm not saying they will, but they can, and you have to be careful about that. And if you do, God forbid, lose that customer and you have big debt service, then you're in a heap of trouble. So for me, with customer concentration that high, I would look for a lot more seller financing, to spread the risk a little bit, because if you don't, then all the risk falls on you. And the first thing you should do when you buy the company, no matter what, is, I remember when we tried to put our business up for sale for the first time, and the boutique M&A company, they basically said to us, we'll put together a SIM for you, but you've got to get your customer concentration down below 20%. We were at about, I think, originally about 40% with one customer, and we got it into the low 30s, and we got all excited. And then the investment banker said, nope, that's still too high. You got to get it under 20. So just keep that in mind. Should you buy this company, but the first thing you need to be doing is to dilute that customer concentration.
Yeah, thank
The
you.
other
Thank
thing
you.
too, to add on that, if the GC and the seller if they know each other well, which I assume they do, and they have a good connection, and that seller can go to that GC and say, hey, I'm looking to sell. You need someone to put 10% equity in. So will that GC invest 10% equity into the business somehow, and then you partner with them, and then you've got them, you've got them locked up a little bit, at least that they're not going to go anywhere because they're investing in the company and a partner of yours. But
Yeah, that's
you
a
gotta have
great
that
point.
conversation with the seller.
And also another thing that you might want to consider doing is have the seller, if you can't get the seller to do more of an annuity deal, have them roll over a much bigger portion of their compensation. Because the more they're tied to the business, the more they're going to make sure that they keep that 50% customer. So instead of rolling over 10, maybe they need to roll over between 30 and 50%.
So I discussed this the other day with these folks. So I think there's an important point there, Lenny. The ownership of the business is 70-30. The operating partner that runs it owns the 30%. It's the 70% owner that wants to cash out. The 30% owner is willing to roll 10%. So he's rolling 1/3 of his equity.
Got it.
And he's the one that's operating and has the relationships. Am I right about that, Folly? Did I remember that right?
Yes, you did. He owns 23%, but
23. Okay, so he's rolling 10% of 23%.
Yeah, but David, from a risk profile, don't you think that even if that's the case, and he's going to roll over 10 of his 23% into the new co, that one customer, even though this gentleman, the operating partner, has the relationship, it's still, in my opinion, a pretty scary position to be in. All things can affect, even if the general contractor that is the big customer is not nefarious. You have construction's very influenced by macroeconomic conditions. And, if you're taking on a boatload of debt, and all of a sudden that general contractor, even if he halves the amount of business he gives you, that could be, that could just destroy your debt service coverage ratio.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
I definitely think there's a significant risk in in the concentration. I just want to make sure that I think it is a mitigating factor that the operating person is rolling 50% of his equity or close to it. I mean, I think that is a good sign, but it's still a big risk, and particularly when as I said earlier in the comments, you rolled the receivables turn rate and the concentration, and understanding how much of that receivable is at risk. Because I mean, look, just because they're a giant global contractor and just because they've been in business for 150 years doesn't mean they don't go bankrupt. Bechtel here in Texas is in bankruptcy right now. They've been in business since 1890.
Yeah.
And they had one big project. They've got an LNG project down on the coast that got big ways, and it's a whole company. So, just because they're big and they've been around forever doesn't mean that they can't fail.
Awesome. Everybody, thanks for the comments on this deal and questions. Great job, great presentation.